The Bangladesh Nationalist Party wants national election by the middle of this year, followed by local government polls afterwards. The party believes that local polls before parliamentary election would be a delaying tactic. The issue was discussed during a standing committee meeting at the party chairperson's office. Acting chairperson Tariq Rahman joined the meeting from London virtually. A member said after the meeting that the government should abandon plans for local government elections and instead focus on holding a national election by mid-year in line with the public aspirations. According to reports, party leaders are putting pressure on the interim government through seminars and discussions to have the general election by June this year. The local government polls are also discussed at the BNP meeting. All senior leaders said the polls would delay the general election as they will take place in different phases and take more than 1.5 years to be completed. The interim government has indicated that the national election is likely to be held either later this year or early next year. The government has also stated that if there is no significant demand for widespread reforms from the political parties, the polls may be scheduled earlier. The BNP, however, maintains that reforms are an ongoing process and should continue, but the election should only be conducted after implementing the necessary reforms. At the meeting, the BNP also discussed the government's decision to raise VAT and supplementary duties over 100 goods and services midway through the fiscal year. BNP leaders expressed frustration over the tax increase, arguing that no elected government would implement measures that exacerbate public suffering. Now for more on this, WION's Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, joins us on the broadcast. Siddhant, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, the BNP is demanding parliamentary elections by middle of this year. What can you tell us about that, Siddhant? Can you hear me? Siddhant, I hope you can hear me.
No, I can't hear.
All right, we will get Siddhant back online with us. But for right now, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party wants the national election by the middle of this year, which are to be followed by local government polls afterwards. Now, as per the party, it believes that the local polls before parliamentary election would be a delaying tactic. For more on this, we are now being joined by our Assistant Editor Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can hear me now, Siddhant. I was asking you about the BNP's demand to hold parliamentary elections by the middle of this year. What can you tell us?
Well, essentially, we know the situation that emerged in Bangladesh last year after Hasina's exit, the rise of the Yunus regime. Now, essentially, it was an interim government. It was a government that was expected to announce the elections. So far, there is no announcement of elections by the Yunus government, which is seen as an unelected government. Now, essentially, two dates or time frame have been given by the Yunus government, that is end of 2025 or early 2026 to hold elections, but that has been making other parties desperate and anxious about the true intentions of the Yunus government, including of course BNP, which is one of the key parties in the country. Now essentially we know that when it comes to the Yunus government, why there has been a delay in terms of announcing the election, the key reason that Yunus himself has given is that he is calling for electoral reforms. Now what does that mean and what is the key focus behind that is something that is awaited, but so far because of the electoral reforms which Yunus says, that is why the elections have been delayed. But a long delay in announcing the elections will raise more questions, and of course parties like BNP who see their coming to power with the incoming elections, they of course will be anxious. We know that calls have been made by BNP over that.
Right. Now, Siddhant, in fact, I also wanted to get your insights on the diplomatic row that seems to be emerging now. India summoned Bangladesh's acting High Commissioner, saying that New Delhi has followed all protocols in construction of fencing along the border between the two neighbours. What can you tell us about this border fencing row?
Well, essentially, UNIS government has several issues, whether it's domestically over the announcement of the elections or with its large neighbor, that is India. We know that there have been several issues of concerns. One that has emerged is the border fencing. The BSF has been fencing the border, but it has been facing resistance from the locals, and there have been talks with the BSF's counterpart, the Bangladeshi counterpart as well. But the situation remains in a precarious zone. Now, essentially, India summoned the Bangladeshi top diplomat here in Delhi yesterday and raised the issue, pointing out that New Delhi wants a crime-free border, and that is why fencing is required. So, fencing is one of the key issues, but remember, it's just not fencing. There is the issue of minorities as well. India has been very vocal about the situation of Hindu minorities in the country. There have been reports of violence against the minorities rising since the UNIS government took charge, but the UNIS government has been terming it as politically motivated. That raises more questions as to why this is happening, and essentially it looks like it will be a long time before any normalcy comes between Delhi-Dhaka relationship. Highly unlikely it's going to come in under the UNIS government.
All right, well, Siddhant, thank you so much for bringing us the latest on this. We'll, of course, continue to track all developments closely on this front.